Line
Yep.
three, the martyr, the adventurer, the thrill seeker, the experimenter. That's a
The
nice way.
determined discoverer.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Catalyst of change. Third line serve as catalysts for change, discovering new mutations and progressing through trial and error. Yeah, we bump into everything. And like understanding that about ourselves of just like we're gonna learn by bumping into it, right? So that first line, they're gonna go and they're gonna investigate. They're gonna not know, and then they're gonna go investigate it really intensely, right?
And they
And
wanna be an authority on it
they want to
all.
be an authority on it because that'll quelch that like fear and insecurity, right? The second line's gonna go off and hermit and become this like magical natural at what they do, and the third line we just
With
gonna
some fairy
bump.
dust, waiting to see if they've noticed what no one else has noticed yet, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And then
yeah.
be
This
all excited about that.
Oh yeah, the second line's. I mean, you guys like glimmer in comparison, and the third line's we're just gonna bump into everything, and I'm gonna learn how everything works by learning every way that it doesn't work. So trial and error definitely is the words for that.
I'm curious about that, Moni. Are you aware, and how often were you, and were you aware at a younger age that you were doing that? Did you ever find yourself, "Well, I'm just gonna do that on purpose"?
Yeah, there's definitely like stupid little things where I'm like, oh, I wonder what happens if I do this, but it was not the right thing
And
to
so, but
do.
but being a third line, you naturally build in for there's no such thing as a mistake for a third
No,
line,
it's just how
or
we learn.
yeah, it's just for, for what happened, for the outcome. What did you
Yeah,
learn?
but I'd have like a sense of like either what does this do, or like this probably isn't going to work out, or like this bad thing could happen. And it's like, well, I gotta bump into it
I
anyway.
guess I'll
And
do
then
it
like
anyway.
it's like
Yeah.
almost like a premonition on the possible thing that I could bump into and then spill and
Mm.
like mess up.
Yep.
Mess up,
Yep.
make a mess up to learn. Well, now I know not to do it that way has
Tell
become
me
my mantra.
in what way, how could that not make the person become adaptable?
I
This
mean,
is
it's
the biggest synthesizing line. It's why the profiles begin with a third line and end with a third line. They don't do that with any other line. They begin 1-3, and when you go through all 12, you're at 6-3. It's
oh, no
that
shit.
it's we This was our mutative thing. The third line took us out of the trees. You know what I mean?
Yeah, try something new.
We would
What's
have all
going
been
on
first.
down there?
Yeah, we would have been first and second lines perfecting the trees and being called out once in a while. Maybe the second line might bump into the thing, but the third line made damn sure we got out of the trees,
Yeah, we fell
stood up,
out. We fell
yeah,
out
and
to
stood
find what's going
upright
on.
and made some stuff and right, right.
Yeah, it's either adaptable and resilient or like a complete basket case of trying to be perfect and like neurotically just like freaking yourself out trying to be perfect or beating yourself up about like not being perfect or really chasing that when it's like man the shift that happens like learning that I was a third line to just be able to like oh, it's a third line day, or like now I know not to do it that way. Like I'll just
Mm.
repeat that to myself because it's like otherwise it's like I'd feel like an idiot. I'd feel like a total jackass with all the weird little things that I'm constantly bumping into.
And think about these roles of a third line. So if you have a third line, your role of behavior is the martyr. The role in interaction with the other is basically the agitator. Uh, uh, that to
The
what I'm looking for.
anarchist kind of
Anarchist, thank
yeah.
you. Anarchists
Yeah.
don't tear stuff down, tear it down because they're always bumping into when they bump into it and they're like, hey, this is a crappy foundation. The wood's all soft. I can poke through it with a pencil, BS, and they tear it down. Some people don't like that. That's why, they look at that and they become martyred. Limited perspective is pessimism.
Yeah.
Don't let yourself fall into the pessimism as a second line. You're infinitely adaptable, and your
There you
creative
go.
way is called sustainment. That
Yeah.
is part of your adaptation. That's why you guys are like weebles. You wobble and you always get back up. You're always knocked
Mhm.
back up. And so you guys get knocked back up. The rest of us truly get knocked down.
Oh
You
yeah,
just
yeah. We just pop back up. We just
yeah,
pop
you
back
you
up to be punched again.
in doing so you get knocked down a lot more, but because it's not actually down,
You're just like, oh, okay.
mostly, shall I say.
Hmm.
But yep.
Yeah, what is it? There's a raw thing I was listening to recently is that said the first line is looking for the authority. The third line is finding. So the
Right.
third line, we're gonna find everything that doesn't work, which is really important, right? Like we
Mhm.
need to know what doesn't work, right? You can investigate all you want, you can hermit and like be your little like magical self, and like that's great. But like we also like we need people who are just bumping in to go like, hey, that foundation is faulty. Hey, that doesn't work. Oh, don't do it that way. It's better to do it this way. So we'll find the best ways to do things by learning all the ways not to do them.
The forces had this third line as our mutative way, our adaptive way, the way in which we would actually become change agents. They had all of this thing in mind, again, because they began our profiles with the investigating martyr and they ended with the 6-line role model martyr. So, I mean, it really encompasses the whole hexagram.
Yeah. And the
Yep,
final point on this one is their ability to notice flaws and loopholes drives scientific exploration and material understanding. Yeah, the third line is the most material of all the
absolutely.
lines. So that's in the like the money courses that Ra has out there, then it's like the third lines of the gates.
Absolutely. So if you want to know how to make money, go read all the third lines of all the gates. Go read all 64 of them. Then hone back in on your third lines in your body graph and give that some contemplation. Suddenly you'll find a material way.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Right. Characteristics. The martyr learns through trial and error, discovering what works through experimentation, and then you're learning what doesn't work. So we learn what doesn't work, and then we learn what works by learning what doesn't work. And they're often blamed for mistakes, and they excel at recognizing what doesn't work and setting boundaries. I mean, when we get good at that part, but yeah, being blamed for mistakes because it's like we're always gonna be the ones that are like tripping and falling and find what doesn't work. So like that could definitely, in certain situations,
And
be
when you're
really
young, it can
uncomfortable.
be a real trip. That can
Oh
be a
yeah,
real conditioning trip,
yeah,
because at some point in time, I can imagine almost every third line has heard, well, what did you break again? What did you do this time?
oh yeah,
Right? Is that a thing? Was that in your
oh
life
yeah.
too? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, or just like in like every
Right.
every regard.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Right.
yeah,
What was the last one? They thrive on physicality, trying things out to learn. Absolutely. All the
yeah,
third lines I know do stuff.
yeah, just over and over and over again, and by bumping into all the weird ways that it was a little funny, then we'll like perfect in.
The third line does something else incredibly important, and it's also sort of in its way of bonding. Its way of bonding is sort of as the kamikaze.
Yeah,
So it's but quite the opposite of a second line, you know.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. They're crashing in instead of being called
yeah,
out.
and but very important with that as that third line. What was I going to say? I was adding in, oh, they are our genetic mixing melting pot.
Mm,
The third lines keep making sure we're mixing it up.
and trying something new and trying something different. Like even if
They
I know that,
become
like,
the
yeah,
vortex that makes sure that, like, some of that guy got thrown over there to some of that gal, and it makes dang sure that, we got the tall guy with the short lady, we need some kids from them, we got this guy with that gal, we need someone like that,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know? These 2 cats, they're not gonna make it, but we want their genetic material, so make some babies, that's the third line is doing this to us, so we have to become ourselves so we don't fall prey to the
Mm,
genetic imperative, which will take us out of our nature.
mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, challenges, navigating social interactions and managing bonds made and broken. Yeah, that's a really good part is because, yeah, our bonding strategy is bonds made and broken because the third line needs new experiences. So it's bonds made and broken and made and broken and made and broken and made and broken. So it's hanging out and then finding where the bond can be broken and then breaking it. And then you could remake it. It could just be like walking out of the room, you
Never
know?
mind can remake it, a lot of many third lines. I'm not speaking to the ones that don't see it this way. I'm speaking to the ones that have seen it this way, where they just see like I'm breaking it and I'm breaking it for good. Reassess. Many of those you don't have to break for good. You know what I'm saying over time, and you can also sort of stop getting a little pissed or antsy about breaking that bond or feeling insecure about it or feeling stupid or having to make up excuses. All the things that head trip will do to us, right?
Hmm.
So you're making and breaking bonds, meaning I'm in your aura. Oh, it's time to get out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you
Step
leave the way
away.
for the rest of us to do that. And then this what martyr complex. Yeah, acting like a martyr. Here comes the pessimism. Um, to get attention and to basically feel important. That is a thing, I guess, that could happen. More important than that, did you run into that at all?
I mean, yeah, I could definitely like in that frame. I mean, I can find myself in any like weird
I might
situation.
well, I
But
might
yeah,
finesse that to be you were martyred and basically you took on the role sometimes, but it
yeah,
wasn't you were trying. It was like you were
both of
already
the
there.
it was already there, and then there could be that like, that person like they've been through something so hard and people care for them so deeply and they're so impressed, and like you've been through all this crazy stuff and you get knocked around and you just want some love and attention. So I can see
Mm,
some of that in there,
yep. Yeah,
where it's just like you do
absolutely.
get knocked around a lot, so sometimes you're like, can I just get a hug? Like, can you just make me feel special because I feel sad?